It is exactly 2:15 a.m. local time on December 7th, 2025. The seaport of Temryuk, perched on the frozen edge of the Sea of Azov, is drowning in a thick, bitter mist. The air stings. The floodlights glow weakly, halos swallowed by the fog. On the perimeter of the LNG terminal, Sergeant Nikolai Volkov sits hunched inside his security booth. He rubs his gloved hands over a tiny electric heater that clicks and buzzes, barely pushing back the minus 11 degrees Celsius cold. His breath fogs the glass. On his flickering monitor, the massive cylindrical LNG tanks loom over the pier, steel giants half visible through the haze. To Nikolai, they are nothing more than silent infrastructure, but in reality, he is guarding the last titanium pillar holding up the Russian Federation's war economy. And tonight, that pillar is about to be kicked out from under him. These tanks hold liquefied natural gas at a chilling minus 160 degrees Celsius. But more importantly, they hold the hard currency that prevents Russia's economy from collapsing. This is the blood that keeps the heart of the occupation beating. It pays for the factories in the Urals, the soldiers in the trenches, and the missiles raining down on Kyiv. Vladimir Putin understands this equation better than anyone. No gas, no war. But tonight, that equation is about to be broken. High above, invisible against the pitch-black sky, a swarm of electronic eyes is watching. The SBU Alpha unit isn't looking at a port, they are looking at a bomb, and the fuse has already been lit. Hundreds of miles away, deep inside a windowless, reinforced bunker near Kharkiv, the air is warm and smells of ozone and stale energy drinks. A Ukrainian operator, call sign Surgeon, leans forward in his chair. He doesn't look like a soldier. He wears a hoodie, and his eyes are ringed with dark circles. He looks like a gamer, but the stakes of his game are measured in billions of dollars. On his screen, the thermal feed is crisp. The tanks of Temryuk glow with the faint, ghostly signature of cold storage against the warmer sea air. The contrast makes them stand out like beacons in the night. Surgeon isn't flying a jet. He is guiding a jagged piece of history, a long-range attack drone derived from a light aircraft frame packed with high explosives. He has bypassed the radar net. He has slipped through the cracks of the Pantsir batteries like a phantom. His flight lead speaks over the comms, a voice devoid of emotion. Alpha 1 in position, logic verified. Surgeon's hand hovers over the control stick. His heart rate is steady, rhythmic, slow. He has practiced this run 100 times in the simulator, but this time, the target isn't pixels. It's the Kremlin's wallet. He one word into his headset, a quiet condemnation. Terminal. On the docks, the world holds its breath. Sergeant Volkov bends down to retie his bootlace. The fabric of his glove stiffens in the cold. The heater buzzes, a comforting, mundane sound. Outside the booth, a flock of seagulls, disturbed by a sudden change in air pressure, takes flight. They screech, a sharp, piercing sound that cuts through the mechanical hum of the port. Volkov sits up, frowning. The bird shouldn't be flying at night. The sudden movement catches his eye. Then he hears it. It starts as a low whine, indistinguishable from the wind. But within a second, it sharpens. It transforms into a high-pitched, razor-like whistling. It sounds like a tea kettle beginning to boil, but louder, closer, more angry. Volkov drops his cigarette. It hits the floor, sparks scattering on the linoleum. He stands up, his eyes widening as he looks through the reinforced glass, realizing the sound isn't coming from the ships, it is coming from above. The realization hits him a split second before the drone does. Impact. The first drone doesn't just hit tank number 4, it dissects it. The warhead detonates against the pressurized outer shell with a metallic crunch that echoes across the bay. The steel tears open like wet paper, but for a split second, there is no fire, just a massive, violent hiss, like the breath of a waking dragon. Inside the port control room, a young technician freezes as the pressure gauge on tank 4 spikes off the chart and then drops to 0 instantly. "Sensor failure?" he stammers, tapping the glass dial with a trembling finger. That can't be real." It is real, and it is terrifying. When the containment shell is breached, the LNG inside, compressed to 1/600th of its volume, is suddenly exposed to the atmosphere. It undergoes a rapid phase transition, RPT. The liquid boils in a microsecond, expanding into a massive white vapor cloud that rolls over the concrete like a heavy, suffocating tsunami. It engulfs the security booth, obscuring the cameras, freezing the ground instantly before the fire even starts. For a terrifying instant, it feels like physics itself has been rewritten. The cloud hangs heavy, mixing with the oxygen. Then, it finds the heat from the drone's burning wreckage. Boom! A fireball erupts, reaching hundreds of feet into the sky. It doesn't just burn, it consumes the oxygen in the immediate area, creating a vacuum that pulls the air inward before blasting it outward with concussive force. The shockwave hits the port security booth like a freight train. Glass shatters, radios scream with static. Volkov is thrown off his feet, the world turning into a blur of orange light and ringing silence. Chaos takes the wheel. In the command center, the Russian defenders misread the threat entirely. The radar didn't pick up the low-flying composite drone. The initial report screams across the radio net. Industrial accident! Valve rupture on tank 4. They think it's a leak. They think it's a mechanical failure caused by lack of maintenance. Deploy the emergency crews! The supervisor yells, panic edging into his voice. Contain the spill! Fire trucks, sirens wailing, rush toward the inferno. They drive straight into the kill zone. Surgeon watches this on his screen hundreds of miles away. He sees the flashing lights of the emergency vehicles entering the frame. He feels no joy, only cold professionalism. He knows that if they spray water on an LNG fire, they will only heat the gas and make the fire grow. Water transfers heat to the cryogen, accelerating the vaporization. They are feeding the beast. But he can't let them stabilize the situation. He has orders to ensure total incapacitation of the facility. He checks his telemetry. His wingman is seconds behind. He sees the pipeline network connecting the tanks, the veins of the facility. He makes a choice. Vector 3, he whispers, his voice calm. Cut the interconnects. He pushes the feed forward. Another drone drops like a stone out of the darkness. Impact. Tank number 5 explodes. This is no accident. The realization hits the Russian command center like a physical blow. The supervisor stops yelling. The room goes silent. Air raid! Air raid! The radio screams, but the voice is drowned out by the roar of the fire. The port's automated safety systems try to engage. Emergency shutoff valves attempt to slam close, but the intense heat has already warped the metal tracks. The hydraulic lines melt. The fail-safes fail. Because Surgeon targeted the interconnecting pipes, the fire cannot be isolated. He has created a thermal runaway effect. The heat from Tank 4 pressurizes Tank 5. Tank 5 ruptures, pressurizing Tank 6. Boom! It is a rhythm of destruction, a domino effect of thermal energy. In minutes, the port is gutted. Tens of storage tanks begin to melt into twisted steel skeletons. Thousands of cubic meters of gas vaporize into a torch that turns the night into day. The sky over the Sea of Azov pulses with a sickly orange light, visible for 50 miles. The captain of a Liberian-flagged tanker moored at the pier screams for an emergency cast-off. Crewmen hack at the thick mooring lines with fire axes, sparks flying, desperate to drift away from the blast radius before their own cargo cooks off. They know that if their ship ignites, the explosion will erase the entire coastline. The sun rises, but the fire does not die. The Russian response is chaotic and helpless. Fire crews stand hundreds of meters back, shielding their faces from the radiated heat. They are fighting a losing battle against chemistry. You cannot extinguish an LNG fire with standard equipment. You have to wait for it to starve. Russia is forced to do the only thing it can: watch it burn. And it burns for 70 hours. For 3 full days, the fire at Temryuk refuses to die. A 20-second clip leaked by intelligence sources captures the sound. A constant, roaring scream that drowns out the wind. From apartments miles away, Russian civilians watch the orange glow pulse in the sky, a constant reminder that the war has arrived at their doorstep. This is not just a fire. It is a signal. The Golden Goose is cooking in its own fat. The port is paralyzed. The ships waiting offshore turn away. The logistics chain is severed. The schedule is broken. But as the smoke billows over Temryuk, masking the horizon, the Kremlin realizes this wasn't a lucky lightning strike. It was the opening note of a synchronized symphony of destruction. While the fire crews were helpless in Temryuk, the SBU Alpha unit was busy dismantling the rest of the Russian rear. This was a coordinated decapitation strike. Hundreds of miles away, deep inside the Russian interior, the night shift had just begun at the Sizran oil refinery. A worker, taking a break near the cooling towers, looked up as the ground trembled beneath his safety boots. He saw a flash so bright he thought the sun had come up early. 5 to 6 explosions ripped through the distillation towers. Massive flares lit up the side of a refinery capable of processing 8 million tons of oil. The worker dropped his cigarette and ran, the heat of the blast warming his back. The fuel meant for tanks in Donetsk was burning in Sizran. In occupied Donetsk, a Russian Pantsir S-1 crew sat inside their vehicle, radar spinning. They felt safe. They were the hunters. They were the ones who shot down drones. They laughed at the reports coming from Temryuk, confident in their own invincibility. Suddenly, their radar screen went white with jamming. Before they could reboot the system, a Ukrainian drone slammed into the command vehicle. The shield was vaporized by the sword. Simultaneously, a warehouse full of Russian drones was obliterated, and a frontline fuel depot in Luhansk was destroyed. This was an all-in offensive, a coordinated decapitation of Russia's energy and military logistics across the entire theater. Now, we must step back from the fire and ask the question: why this sudden, brutal shift? Why target LNG, and why now? The answer lies in the cold, hard math of war. For months, Ukraine has been evolving its strategy. In early 2025, they attacked refineries to stop production. Now, in the winter of 2025, they are attacking the stockpiles. They are not just stopping the factory, they are burning the inventory sitting on the shelf. Ukraine realized that LNG was Russia's last safe harbor. Even as oil sanctions bit, LNG exports remained stable. Russia sold 28.4 million tons of LNG in 2025, keeping the war economy afloat with hard currency. And here is the uncomfortable truth that enraged Kyiv. The European Union was the buyer. Despite all the speeches in Brussels, the EU imported record amounts of Russian LNG in 2025, handing Putin $4.5 billion in just the first half of the year. The math is sickening. The EU has paid Russia $34 billion more for fossil fuels than it has given Ukraine in military aid. Ukraine saw this hypocrisy. They realized that European partners were effectively funding the missiles striking Kyiv. So, the SBU decided to intervene. If the EU won't stop buying Russian gas, Ukraine will make it impossible to load it onto the ships. By destroying the tanks at Temryuk, Ukraine enforced a physical blockade that Western sanctions failed to achieve. They physically removed the product from the market. The fire at Temryuk is finally out, but the damage is permanent. Repairing cryogenic LNG tanks takes months, specialized parts, and Western technology that Russia cannot easily import under sanctions. For a terminal designed to handle 40,000 tons annually, this is a death sentence. Lines of foreign tankers will wait at the docks, but the valves will be dry. The contracts will go unfulfilled. Kirilo Budanov, head of Ukrainian military intelligence, called this a simple mathematical truth. He is right. War costs money. And tonight, Ukraine burned a lot of it. They proved that no facility, whether it's a refinery in Sizran or an ice-free port on the Sea of Azov, is safe. The SBU Alpha unit has turned the entire Russian energy infrastructure into a front line. As dawn breaks over the twisted metal of the port, smoke still rises from the blackened ruins of Tank 4. The air smells of sulfur, burnt plastic, and the metallic tang of ruin. Sergeant Volkov, battered, covered in soot, and deafened by the blast, sits on a piece of concrete debris near the water's edge. He watches the embers scuttle across the frozen water like fireflies. His breath fogs in the pre-dawn air, quiet, furious, and empty. He looks at the ruined skyline of the port. He sees the melted gantries, the scorched earth, the silence where there used to be industry. He knows, just as the generals in Moscow know, that the rear no longer exists. There is no safe place left. The war has come home. Operation Temryuk proved one terrifying thing to the world. You can have the largest army, the deepest reserves, and the most expensive air defense systems money can buy. But if you cannot protect your wallet, you cannot survive a modern war. Because in 2025, battles aren't only fought with missiles and soldiers, they're fought with pipelines, shipping lanes, supply chains, and collapsing economies. And tonight, somewhere above the Kerch Strait, that truth burned brighter than the flames rising from the shattered artery that once fed Russia's war machine. So now the world is left staring at a single, uncomfortable question. Was this operation a reckless act of economic desperation, or a calculated masterpiece of asymmetric strategy designed to choke a superpower without firing a single shot across a border? Because attacking global energy infrastructure isn't just sabotage, it's a message, a warning, a line in the sand. Some will say it was necessary to force Moscow into a corner where war becomes too expensive to continue. Others will warn that pushing a nuclear power into economic panic could ignite something far more dangerous, something that no army, no alliance, and no sanctions package can fully control. And if you were a European leader watching that fire reflect off the Black Sea tonight, would you risk freezing winters and higher energy prices to stop funding a war? Tell me what you think. Because one way or another, this moment will be remembered as the night Europe had to choose between comfort and confrontation.